His name is basically a synonym for genius. His face, with that halo of wild hair and those gentle, knowing eyes, is one of the most recognizable on the planet. He was a thinker whose ideas were so big they warped our understanding of reality itself. A mind so powerful it unlocked the secrets of the atom and the very architecture of the cosmos. Albert Einstein is more than just a scientist. He's a cultural icon, a symbol of curiosity, and a testament to the power of pure imagination. His theories completely revolutionized physics. But his life was a story far more complex than the myth. It was a journey of struggle, perseverance, love, loss, and a deep, unwavering moral conscience that forced him to grapple with the consequences of his own brilliance. He started out as a patent clerk who couldn't even get a teaching job, yet he would become the father of the atomic age while being a devoted pacifist. How did this humble office worker manage to unlock the secrets of the universe and become the most famous scientist in history? How did a boy who was slow to speak find the language to describe the cosmos? This is the story of Albert Einstein, the mind that literally reshaped reality, the unlikely genius. Albert Einstein was born in Ulm, Germany, on March 14, 1879, to a secular, middle-class Jewish family. His father, Hermann, was a kind but often unsuccessful entrepreneur in the new electrochemical industry. His mother, Pauline, was a cultured and determined woman with a passion for music. Right from the start, Albert was different. His parents actually worried about his development. He was so quiet that he didn't start talking until he was around 3 years old. When he finally did, he had a funny habit of whispering his sentences to himself before saying them out loud. This thoughtful pause led the family's maid to call him the Deppert, the dopey one. He wasn't much interested in playing with other kids. He preferred his own company, building intricate houses of cards up to 14 stories high, or getting lost in complex puzzles. But 2 moments from his childhood, 2 wonders, as he would later call them, lit the fuse of his scientific curiosity. The first happened when he was 5 years old and sick in bed. His father gave him a simple magnetic compass. For young Albert, it was a revelation. He was absolutely mesmerized. What invisible force, what unseen power in the supposedly empty space was making that needle point so stubbornly north? He later said this moment convinced him that something deeply hidden had to be behind things. This fascination with invisible forces would define his entire career. The second wonder came when he was 12, after a family friend gave him a small book on Euclidean geometry. Einstein devoured it, calling it his holy little geometry book. The clarity, the absolute certainty of it all, the way profound truths could be proven from just a few simple ideas, filled him with an awe that school never did. And school, that was a source of constant friction. The family had moved to Munich when he was an infant, and he started his education at a Catholic school where he was often the only Jewish student and felt like an outsider. Later, at the rigid authoritarian Luitpold Gymnasium, he hated the rote memorization and strict discipline. He despised the military-like atmosphere, which he felt crushed creativity. His teachers, in turn, found him rebellious. One famously told him he would never amount to anything. Now, the popular myth that Einstein was a bad student who failed math is totally untrue. He was always at the top of his class in math and physics, the subjects he loved. By age 11, he was reading college-level physics books and had taught himself calculus by 14. The problem wasn't his ability. It was his contempt for the system. It is, in fact, nothing short of a miracle. He later said that the modern methods of instruction have not yet entirely strangled the holy curiosity of inquiry. When he was 15, the family business failed again, and the Einsteins moved to Milan, Italy. They left Albert behind in Munich to finish his school year and prepare for compulsory military service. Miserable and alone, Einstein lasted just 6 months before coming up with an escape plan. He got a doctor's note citing nervous exhaustion, withdrew from the school, and fled Germany, renouncing his citizenship to dodge the draft. He then showed up, unannounced, on his parents' doorstep in Italy. He was now a 16-year-old high school dropout and a draft dodger. His prospects didn't look great, but he had a plan. Apply to the prestigious Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. He took the entrance exam, and while he crushed the physics and math sections, his scores in French, chemistry, and biology weren't good enough. He failed, but the school's director was so blown away by his math skills that he offered him a spot on one condition. He had to finish his secondary education first at a progressive school in the nearby town of Aro. That year in Aro changed everything. The liberal, creative atmosphere was the complete opposite of his German school. Here, free thinking was encouraged, and his curiosity flourished. He lived with the headmaster's family, the Winterlers, and finally felt at home. He graduated in 1896 and enrolled at the Zurich Polytechnic. It was the same year he met a fellow physics student who would change his life, a brilliant and intense young Serbian woman named Milava Maric. His university years were a mixed bag. He often skipped lectures he found boring, preferring to study the great physicists like James Clerk Maxwell on his own. This annoyed some of his professors, especially Heinrich Weber, whose grudge would later become a major roadblock. Einstein got his real education from passionate debates with friends like Marcel, whose perfect notes helped him cram for exams, and with Mileva, who was his intellectual equal and soon his romantic partner. After graduating in 1900, Einstein hit a wall. He was desperate for a teaching job, but every application was rejected. He suspected Professor Weber was writing terrible recommendations, effectively blackballing him. I would have found a job long ago if Weber had not played a dishonest game with me, he complained. To make things worse, his parents were dead set against his relationship with Mileva. Unhappy with her Serbian Orthodox background and her intellectual independence. In 1902, their daughter Liesel was born out of wedlock. Her fate remains a sad mystery. Historians believe she either died as an infant or was given up for adoption. Unemployed, unable to marry the woman he loved, and with a child to support, this was probably the lowest point of his life. He took temporary tutoring jobs, only to be fired. Finally, in 1902, the father of his friend Marcel Grossman pulled some strings and got him a job as a technical expert, third class at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a lifeline. It meant a steady income, which allowed him to finally marry Mileva in 1903. And most importantly, it gave him time. While he spent his days evaluating other people's inventions, his mind was free to roam the cosmos, to ponder the nature of light, space, and time. The quiet patent office was about to become the unlikely cradle of a revolution. The miracle year. Then came 1905. In the world of science, it's known as Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. While working his 6-day-a-week job at the patent office, the 26-year-old physicist, who still couldn't get an academic job, published 4 papers in the top German physics journal. Any one of these papers would have been a career. Together, they became the foundation of modern physics and forever changed how we see the universe. The first paper, in March, explained something called the photoelectric effect. Scientists knew that when light hits a metal, it can knock electrons loose. But classical physics, which saw light as a continuous wave, couldn't explain why. Einstein's idea was radical. Building on the work of Max Planck, he argued that light isn't a continuous wave, but is made of individual packets of energy, like tiny bullets. He called these packets light quanta. The name photon would be coined later, in 1926, by a chemist named Gilbert N. Lewis. But the world-changing idea was Einstein. He showed that light could act as both a wave and a particle, a core concept of the quantum revolution that was just getting started. This work was so important that it, not relativity, is what won him the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921. Just 2 months later, his second paper came out. This one solved the puzzle of Brownian motion, the random, jittery dance of particles like pollen when suspended in water. Einstein argued that this visible jiggling was caused by something invisible, the constant bombardment of the particles by zillions of unseen water molecules. This was huge. At the time, the very existence of atoms was still up for debate. Einstein's paper offered the first real experimental proof that atoms were real, effectively ending the argument. The third paper, submitted in June, was the one that truly set the world on fire. This was the birth of the special theory of relativity. For decades, physics had been stuck on a major contradiction between Newton's laws of motion and Maxwell's equations of light. Newton said speed is relative. If you're on a train going 50 miles per hour and throw a ball at 10 miles per hour, someone outside sees the ball moving at 60 miles per hour. Simple, but Maxwell's equations predicted that the speed of light in a vacuum is always the same, about 186,000 miles per second, no matter how fast you or the light source are moving. This made no sense. If you're in a spaceship flying at half the speed of light and turn on your headlights, the light should move away from you at half its normal speed, right? Maxwell's math said no. You'd see it moving at full speed, and so would someone standing still. Einstein's genius was to just accept this paradox as fact. He started with 2 simple ideas. 1. The laws of physics are the same for everyone moving at a constant speed. And 2. The speed of light is constant for everyone. From there, he took a wrecking ball to centuries of common sense about space and time. If the speed of light is constant, he argued, then space and time themselves must be flexible. Through brilliant thought experiments, he showed that for a fast-moving object, time actually slows down and space contracts. Even weirder, he proved that 2 events that seemed to happen at the same time for one person might not be simultaneous for another. There is no universal now. As a final mic drop to his miracle year, Einstein published a 4th paper in September. It was a short addendum to his relativity paper, but it contained what would become the most famous equation in science. E equals mc. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, because the speed of light is a ridiculously huge number. This equation shows that a tiny bit of mass can be converted into a tremendous amount of energy. It explained how stars burn and laid the theoretical groundwork for the nuclear age. By the end of 1905, the patent clerk from Bern had rewritten the laws of physics. He'd proven atoms exist, reimagined light, and woven space and time together. And yet, the world had barely noticed. It would take years for the scientific community to grasp what he'd done. But Einstein wasn't finished. He'd left one thing out of his new theory. Gravity, his greatest masterpiece, was still to come, reshaping the universe. After his 1905 bombshells, Einstein finally started getting noticed by the academic world. He left the patent office in 1909 and took up professorships in Zurich, then Prague, then back to Zurich. But his mind was already obsessed with the big hole in his theory of relativity. It only worked for constant, steady motion. What about acceleration? And what about gravity? The breakthrough came from what he called the happiest thought of my life in 1907. He pictured a man in a free-falling elevator. For this man, gravity would seem to disappear. If he dropped his keys, they'd just float next to him. Now, imagine that same man in an elevator, in deep space, being pulled upwards at a constant acceleration. He'd feel pinned to the floor, just like on Earth. There was no experiment he could do inside the elevator to tell the difference between gravity and acceleration. This was his equivalence principle. It meant gravity wasn't a force pulling things together, as Newton thought. Gravity was a feature of space and time itself. For the next 8 years, Einstein went on a grueling intellectual quest. He knew what he wanted to do, but he didn't have the math for it. He turned to his old friend, the mathematician Marcel Grossman, for help. "Grossman, you must help me, or I'll go mad," he begged. Grossman introduced him to the complex mathematics of curved, non-Euclidean spaces, the perfect toolkit. The idea was that mass and energy literally warp the fabric of space-time around them. And this curvature is what we feel as gravity. An object orbiting the sun isn't being pulled by an invisible rope. It's just following the straightest possible path through the curved space-time created by the sun's mass. Think of a bowling ball on a stretched rubber sheet. It creates a dip. A marble rolled nearby won't go in a straight line. It will follow the curve made by the bowling ball. That's gravity. The work was brutal, full of false starts and dead ends. He was in a race with some of the world's top mathematicians. Finally, in November 1915, after a frantic month of lectures in Berlin, he arrived at the final, correct equations for his general theory of relativity. It was a complete theory of gravity, and it was beautiful, but it also made some wild predictions. The most testable one was that if gravity curves space-time, then it should bend the path of light. Einstein calculated that starlight passing close to the sun should be deflected by a tiny but measurable amount. The only way to see this would be during a total solar eclipse, when the sun's glare is blocked. The world was in the middle of World War I, but science found a way. A British astrophysicist, Sir Arthur Eddington, championed the theory. He saw that an upcoming eclipse on May 29, 1919, was the perfect chance to test it. The sun would be in front of a bright field of stars, making the measurement possible. Eddington organized 2 expeditions, one to the island off the coast of Africa, and another to Sobral, Brazil. Their job was to photograph the stars around the darkened sun and compare them to photos of the same stars taken at night, months earlier. If Einstein was right, the stars' positions would appear to shift. The expeditions were a mess. Was cloudy. Brazil's main telescope was blurry. For months, the world waited as the astronomers analyzed their photographic plates. Finally, in November 1919, the results were announced in London. The starlight had bent, just as Einstein predicted. The news caused a global sensation. Revolution in science. The Times of London declared, "New theory of the universe, Newtonian ideas overthrown." Overnight, Albert Einstein was transformed. He was no longer just a respected physicist. He was a global celebrity, the most famous scientist on Earth, in a world shattered by war. His theory offered a glimpse of a universe that was ordered, magnificent, and understandable. He had gazed into the heart of reality and returned with a new gospel of the cosmos, the man behind the mind. While Einstein was busy reshaping the universe, his own personal universe was often a mess. The global fame that hit him after 1919 put his private life under a microscope, revealing a man far more complex and flawed than his saintly public image suggested. His first marriage to Mileva Maric, which had started with so much intellectual fire, had been falling apart for years. Mileva was a brilliant physicist herself and a key sounding board for his early ideas, but the pressures of running a home, the tragedy of their first child, and her own sidelined scientific career took their toll. As Albert became more and more consumed by his work, they drifted apart. The breaking point came in 1914. After moving to Berlin for a prestigious job, he started an affair with his first cousin, Elsa Leuenthal. His marriage to Mileva collapsed. He gave her a cold, rigid list of rules for staying together, including demands like, "You will see to it that my clothes and linen are kept in order, and you will renounce all personal relations with me." Mileva left, taking their 2 sons back to Zurich. They divorced in 1919. As part of the settlement, Einstein promised her the money from any future Nobel Prize, a promise he kept when he won in 1922 for his work on the photoelectric effect. He married Elsa just a few months later. Elsa was the opposite of Mileva. She wasn't his intellectual peer. She was his loving caretaker, managing his life and shielding him from the chaos of fame. But Einstein wasn't a faithful husband. He had numerous affairs, which he was surprisingly open about with Elsa. She seemed to accept it. "Such a genius should be irreproachable in every respect," she once wrote. "But nature does not behave this way." Einstein himself admitted his failures, later telling a friend, "This is a project in which I grossly failed twice." His relationship with his sons was also complicated. He was close to his older son, Hans Albert, who became a successful engineering professor in California. But the fate of his younger son, Edward, was heartbreaking. A sensitive and gifted boy, Edward developed schizophrenia and spent most of his adult life in a psychiatric clinic. Einstein was devastated. After emigrating to the US, he would never see Edward again. The fame he experienced in the 1920s was off the charts for a scientist. He toured the world, met with kings and movie stars, and became a true global icon. He seemed to understand that this status gave him a unique platform, and he used it to champion the causes he cared about. He was a vocal supporter of Zionism and the founding of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In 1952, he was even offered the presidency of Israel. He politely declined, writing that he simply lacked the natural aptitude for dealing with people, a classic Einstein understatement. He also became a leading voice for pacifism and a world government to end all war. But fame had a dark side. As a prominent Jewish intellectual in Germany, he became a target for the rising wave of anti-Semitism. A group of nationalist physicists denounced his work as Jewish science. His life was threatened. The political climate in Germany was growing toxic. The boy who had fled German militarism was now a man facing a far deadlier threat. It was time to run again. The conscience of science. In 1933, while Einstein was visiting the United States, Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. Einstein knew he couldn't go back. He was a vocal critic of the Nazis, and his life was in danger. He publicly resigned from the Prussian Academy, and the Nazi regime promptly revoked his German citizenship. That same year, he accepted a position at the New Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey, which became his home for the rest of his life. In 1940, he became a U.S. citizen. The man who arrived in America was a global icon and a political refugee. He was a deeply committed pacifist, but the rise of Nazism presented him with a horrible moral choice. He came to believe this evil was so great it had to be resisted by force. He temporarily set aside his absolute pacifism, recognizing the clear and present danger of Hitler's regime. This agonizing compromise led to the most consequential decision of his life. In 1939, just before World War II began, 2 fellow physicists and Eugene Wigner came to him with chilling news. German scientists had figured out how to split the uranium atom, and they feared the Nazis were trying to build an atomic bomb. They begged Einstein to use his fame to warn President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Reluctantly, Einstein signed a letter, mostly written by alerting the president to the possibility of extremely powerful bombs of a new type. That letter was a key factor in the creation of the Manhattan Project, the secret American race to build the bomb. Ironically, Einstein had no part in it. He was denied a security clearance because of his pacifist reputation. When he heard the news in August 1945 that America had dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he was horrified. The destructive power unleashed on the world, a power stemming from his own equation E=mc, filled him with immense regret. He later called signing the letter to Roosevelt the one great mistake in my life. For the rest of his years, Einstein worked tirelessly for nuclear disarmament and world peace. He argued that the only way to survive the atomic age was to create a world government with control over all military power. Shortly before his death, he co-signed the Russell-Einstein Manifesto, a powerful plea for world leaders to renounce nuclear weapons. It was a final, urgent warning from the man whose science had inadvertently opened Pandora's box. Scientifically, his later years were spent on a single, consuming quest, a unified field theory. He dreamed of one set of equations that could unite all of nature's forces. He wanted to know God's thoughts. He never found it. While he worked on this grand vision, physics was moving on, diving deeper into the strange, probabilistic world of quantum mechanics, a theory he had helped create but could never fully accept. God, he famously insisted, does not play dice. Albert Einstein died on April 18, 1955. At the age of 76, he left behind a legacy that's almost impossible to measure. His theories are the foundation of modern physics, powering everything from GPS and lasers to nuclear energy. His work still guides our exploration of black holes and gravitational waves, things he predicted a century ago. But his legacy is so much more than science. The wild-haired genius with the twinkling eyes became a universal symbol of human creativity and the power of a curious mind to question everything. He's a moral compass, a reminder of the awesome responsibility that comes with knowledge. He taught us that the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, but stranger than we can imagine. Albert Einstein's story is a powerful reminder that great minds aren't just defined by their discoveries, but by their humanity, their struggles, and their courage to dream. If you were inspired by his incredible journey, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the smart minds of history. Let us know in the comments which of Einstein's ideas fascinates you the most. In the end, Einstein was more than a physicist. He was a philosopher, a humanitarian, and an eternal seeker. He never lost that sense of wonder he first felt as a boy staring at a compass, guided by an invisible force. His life was a testament to his own famous words: "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world." His imagination embraced the entire cosmos, and in doing so, he expanded the world for all of us. His journey from a quiet, curious boy to the conscience of the scientific age inspires us to keep looking, keep questioning, and to never stop marveling at this magnificent, mysterious universe we call home.